About the Joseph Smith adding himself into the Bible, it's because the canon is open. So it's possible for him to do that. It's always open.
So you think the open canon means that you can retroactively add yourself to make yourself into a predicted prophet thousands of years later?
Well, if divine revelation is involved, then it's possible.
You don't see the problem with that on its face?
Well, the apostles were prophets. So
This is what I don't understand about Mormons is like you don't see that that's totally a different situation.
No.
Okay. The Old Testament, when it has a messianic prophecy, for example, it's not New Testament people adding that into the Old Testament or reading it in. It's the Old Testament prophets in their minds, meaning I'm writing about the future Messiah who will come out of Bethlehem, son of David, Jesus Christ. That's a prophecy. If I add to the book of Genesis at the end, let's say I add on to after Joseph Smith's add-ons, and he shall come after Joseph Smith, Mr. J. Dyer. You don't see how stupid and fraudulent that is.
I see what you're getting at, but here. So there's a distinction. So, apostles, their roles were part of the unfolding of the revelation of God. Whereas Joseph Smith, he's the restoration of the prophecies.
I know you believe that, but what I'm pointing to shows that it's a fraudulent situation because one of the prophecies that is cited in Nephi is his own addition about himself. Do you believe that any text of Genesis prior to Joseph Smith had the extra sections about him?
Well, not that we know of. So that's why he came to restore.
How would it be a restoration if he added himself into the text? If I add myself to the Quran, am I now superior to and predicted by the Quran? I'm the new Muhammad?
No.
Oh. So
but you don't have... I need to have evidence that you're a prophet.
Well, the evidence immediately in that situation would be that I'm not a prophet because any new revelation has to be consistent with the prior revelation. That's Deuteronomy 13 and Deuteronomy 18. And so adding yourself into an ancient text is a default fraudulent move.
Well, Joseph Smith, he aligns with the prophecies before him.
No, he doesn't.
And he's...
No.
Yes, well, under your interpretation, maybe not.
Where in the Old Testament is there anything like Joseph Smith's a prediction of what Joseph Smith teaches?
Other than, well, you don't appeal to, the things, the later verses or later chapters that were discovered. So, I guess.
Well, I don't believe they are discovered. I'm talking about the Torah. Do you admit that the Torah came first?
In some ways.
What does that mean, in some ways?
Well, I think maybe I guess it did come first as part of the Hebrew scriptures.
Right.
Obviously, those predate Joseph Smith.
Okay, thank you. That's what I'm looking for.
But
now,
the divine revelation is eternal. So.
Well, hold on. Before we get to that, so when it says, for example, in Deuteronomy 13 and Deuteronomy 18, any prophets or preachers that come along have to be consistent with the teaching of the Torah, what does that mean?
Well, that means what it says probably, right? So, but...
Come on, dude. You're avoiding the question. What does that mean to what we're talking about now in regard to that? In regard to Joseph Smith's prophethood?
Well, it's consistent from what I could tell.
Okay. Does Joseph Smith teach that there is one God or many gods?
Well, I mean, I guess many, but
okay. Does that where in the Torah or in the Shema is there many gods?
I mean, there are tons of arguments for the fact that there are multiple gods in the Old Testament.
Okay, and like what?
Like the woman, whatever.
The woman. No. What are you talking about? The woman.
I can find that then. But no, there's definitely references to other gods.
Okay. Well, if you've read the Ten Commandments, there's no other gods. What does that mean?
that there's no other God. Yeah. So.
But you just said
you know how
you just said
but
the
you
Old
don't know
Testament. You just said the Old Testament teaches that there's many gods. I just quoted to you the Ten Commandments, and you said it means that there's no other gods.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
But
Mm-hmm. We're gonna move on.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Hi. So yeah, you are debating Mormons tonight.
Sure.
So Chad Wilson, throw out a shout out to you for letting me know when Jay's on.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm LDS. I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints because I find the early Christian church fathers teach LDS doctrine more than they teach Orthodox or Catholic doctrines, especially when we look at before Nicaea and the change in infant baptism. I don't see infant baptism taught before really about 200 AD, and of course the Trinity is definitely a part of the apostasy. So, yeah, that's
Okay.
why.
Who do you think started teaching the Trinity?
Who do I think started teaching the Trinity? Constantine, the Gnostics. That's where homoousios comes from.
Wait, Constantine the Gnostics. Constantine is
Yeah.
an emperor. He has nothing to do with Gnostics.
Right, but it came from Greek philosophy. When
Okay.
you
So you said
follow
Constantine.
the history of when you follow the history of homoousios, it comes through Gnosticism.
Right, that's a
comes through
genetic
Greek
fallacy.
Hellenism.
It's a genetic fallacy. The fact that somebody uses a term does not equate to the meaning of that system using that term.
Sure, but when you look at the idea within Christianity, homoousios was condemned and anathematized in the 260s to condemn Paul of Samosata.
Yeah, but the term is not the problem. It's the meaning of the term. So it really doesn't matter. But
Well, it's the term and the meaning of the term.
no, it's not. There's nothing wrong.
The
Terms,
meaning doesn't change.
of course it does. This is the
No, it doesn't.
this is the word concept fallacy. And by the way, how could the Trinity come there when Tertullian has a gigantic book in about 180 on the Trinity?
Yeah, Tertullian did not teach the Trinity. I do a 10-hour, almost nearly a 20-hour series on my channel on YouTube, debunking the idea that Tertullian taught the Trinity. He taught that the Son was formed when God said, "Let there be light." He was given his own form, his own voice, his own garb, and he said that when God said, "Let there be light," he said that's the perfect nativity of the Son, nativity, the birth. When God said,
So
"Let there be light," Jesus is known as the light.
We've already done a response to all this. I'm not going to go through 10 hours of your citing of it. So what are you laughing at?
So what?
Are you laughing?
I didn't laugh.
Okay. I thought you were laughing. So we've done a response to this that was about a 2-hour talk on Inspiring Philosophy's channel, which deals with this Muslim line of argumentation that these early church fathers. Now, if you're saying that the Trinity was from Constantine and the Gnostics, and I'm saying that, well, the doctrine of the Holy Trinity is the very first thing mentioned in against Praxeas. Even if you take issue with some of the formulations of the way that he talks about the Son, he does not say the Son is a creature. So he's still teaching, quote, the doctrine of the Trinity. That's the very beginning of the treatise. So it's not from Constantine.
Right.
So it's not from Constantine.
So actually, the Trinity, Tertullian actually teaches it very similar to the way we do.
No, it doesn't.
In the sense that Joseph Smith taught that intelligences are not created. We are uncreated. And Tertullian taught that...
well, hold on. We're uncreated? How many gods are there?
Intelligences are not gods.
If they're uncreated, they're gods.
No, matter is uncreated. It does not mean that matter is a god.
So that's right. That's Aristotle's doctrine. If matter is uncreated, how is it not divine?
Justin Martyr taught that matter was not created.
No, he
either,
doesn't teach
so
that. No, he does not. He teaches
Yes, he
creation.
does.
No, he doesn't. He teaches creation ex nihilo.
He does not teach ex nihilo.
Yes, he does. And you're citing a section where he taught. Most of the time when people argue this, I don't know if you're arguing this, but most of the time they're citing a section where he's telling you what the Gnostic doctrines are. He does believe in creation.
No,
Yes,
he
is.
does not teach Gnostic doctrines in First Apology.
No, did you hear what I said? When Mormons and other people try to prove from Irenaeus that he does not teach ex nihilo, they cite a section where he's describing Gnostic teachings denying ex nihilo. You can't understand what I'm saying?
I did not say Irenaeus. I said Justin Martyr.
Okay, I'm talking about Irenaeus. So my mistake.
I'm talking about Justin Martyr. Justin Martyr taught ex materia.
Well, even if he did, it doesn't mean that it's true. But what?
It shows that the earlier we go, we see LDS doctrines.
No, we don't.
Orthodox.
No, we
doctrines.
don't. Because he does not. He does not teach Mormon doctrine. You can watch the response that Sam Shamoon did after we did our response to the Muslims raising the same question. They're not teaching your doctrine. And by the way, it wouldn't matter even if one church father made that mistake, because we don't follow one single church father. The New Testament doesn't teach that there's prima materia or that there's eternal matter. The book of Maccabees teaches that God created everything out of nothing.
Yeah, well, we don't follow the book of Maccabees.
Yeah, but see, well, how do you know what the canon is? How do you know what the scriptures are?
Because we have living apostles who tell us what they are.
So how do you know they're living apostles?
Because they have the authority.
Okay, where did they get that? What's the criteria?
Peter, James, and John.
Where did they get that authority? What's the criteria?
The criteria is to be given it to you from those who hold that authority.
So every cult claims that
Peter,
they have
James,
authority.
And John came to Joseph Smith and gave him and
how do you know? Now hold on.
Cowdery
How do you know
authority.
that Peter, James, and John came to Joseph Smith and he's not just a fraud?
Because we have witnesses and evidence that show that he was a prophet. The Book of Mormon.
The Book of Mormon proves
true.
So the Book of Mormon proves that he's. So his own claims to be a prophet is what proves he's a prophet.
I'm sorry?
His own claims to be a prophet is what proves he's a prophet, according to you?
Not just his own claims, the claims of other witnesses that were there.
Okay, so any cult, if they have people claiming to be witnesses, that means that it's true? How do you know that they're not lying?
Because the consistency within history.
I don't even know what that means. I mean, what do you say to a Muslim who says that the early followers of Muhammad are consistent with the Quran, therefore Islam is true?
Well, I'm talking about the early Christian history after the apostles died.
No, it's the argument is a fallacious argument, is what I'm trying to explain.
So what I'm saying is that everything is evidence for the prophet, because we have consistent evidence through history,
a circle.
through the Bible.
That's a circle.
No, it's not.
Well, the Bible doesn't teach your view. In fact, in the Joseph Smith translation, he added himself to the last chapter of Genesis, correct?
When you look at the Jews actually believed in a Messiah ben Joseph that was supposed to descend from.
No. That's not what I said.
Yeah.
No, that's a rabbinic Talmudic tradition that has nothing to do with the Bible. That's nowhere in the Bible.
Joseph Smith.
No.
Joseph Smith added that rabbinic tradition back into the Bible.
Exactly. So he's a fraud. So he retroactively added himself to the Bible.
He
Exactly.
He retro.
So he's a fraud. Exactly.
Messiah ben Joseph.
So he adds himself to the text. So your argument was that he's a true prophet because he's predicted, and you're admitting that he added himself to the text. That's a fraud.
He was predicted by the rabbinic text.
How in anybody's mind would you think that Messiah ben Joseph from the Talmud has anything to do with Joseph Smith? Is Joseph Smith Jewish?
No. In fact, it says that he's not supposed to be Jewish. It says that he comes from the tribe.
How would the Jews accept Messiah ben Joseph if he's a Gentile?
Because the Ephraimites became they were.
So you think that was in the minds of the Talmudic writers, that they were talking about the shit that is in the Book of Mormon? this made up nonsense
Messiah
about
ben
Ephraimites?
Joseph is supposed to precede the Messiah ben David's second coming. He's supposed to be a restorer. He's supposed to restore the temple. He's supposed to.
And you think that the rabbinic Jews
battle.
in the Talmud who don't believe in anything to do with Christianity or the Bible or Jesus were predicting Joseph Smith a Gentile?
Yes, because when you go, you can actually go look. You can go look at the Jewish Encyclopedia under the Messiah. Everybody look this up. Go to the Messiah Jewish Encyclopedia entry and scroll all the way down to the bottom, and you will read about Messiah ben Joseph. And Joseph Smith filled those prophecies about Messiah ben Joseph.
Why would he fulfill those prophecies as a Gentile and then add himself to the book of Genesis? This is so stupid.
Because he was it already talked about that in the book of Genesis, and it was removed.
How do you know it was removed? How do you know it was removed?
Because it doesn't exist anymore.
So
they still have the prophecies.
You don't see this how dumb this circle is? So we only know that it's removed because he says it's removed, so he adds it, and that's the proof that he's the prophet. That's a circle.
Because we have the evidence in the Jewish Encyclopedia.
What does that have to do with Joseph Smith?
There's
no Jew, there's no Talmudic Jew that would accept a Gentile Messiah ben Joseph. That's crazy.
Because we are not just Gentiles. We are of the tribes of Israel.
No, you're not. That's all made up.
Tribes of Israel.
There's no evidence that you are not the tribe. No, you're not. How are you that when you are you? What's your lineage? You're Jewish now.
I am of the tribe of Ephraim.
No. Mormons think that you're of these tribes, but you're like the Black Hebrew Israelites who claim that you're that when you're nothing to do with that.
So we have the evidence that...
You have no evidence. What's your evidence?
We have the evidence that confirms itself.
What? You have the evidence that confirms itself. So that's a circle.
The evidence is consistent because when we have...
In Jewish eschatology, Messiah ben Yosef or Mashiach ben Yosef is a Jewish Messiah.
Not necessarily.
No, that's the rabbinic tradition.
It's the rabbinic tradition, but it doesn't.
Which has nothing to do with you. You're not Jewish or rabbinic. You have nothing to do with that. You have no connection to that.
Doesn't mean that everything that they interpret has to be interpreted that way.
So again, this is why the religion is fraudulent, because you remove the context. You remove the context and make it about something that is nowhere in their mind. That's why it's fraudulent. It's also fraudulent
They did not interpret the Messiah ben David properly in the very beginning anyway. That's why they missed their Messiah.
Oh, so that would discount your usage of their prophecy to begin with. So if Messiah ben David is a false usage, you can't use Messiah ben Joseph to prove you, dummy. You just undercut yourself.
Yes, I can. Because
that's a double standard. You just refuted yourself.
Jay, we know better.
We know better. You literally just said that because you said that the Jews were wrong about Messiah ben David, and they misinterpreted. Shut up! Shut up! You just... All right, this is too stupid. He literally just said the Jews are not trustworthy because their interpretation of Messiah ben David is wrong. Oh, but I'm going to use Messiah ben Joseph out of context because that one's right, but it's not what they thought. This is so crazy. This is the exact same thing as the Mohammedans saying that the Old Testament is predicting Muhammad. But wait a minute, that's all corrupted. No, but the Muhammad tells me that it was predicting Muhammad.
Not only that, remember I told you that Sedevacanta priest where he was like, "Have you read the book of Maccabees? It prophesies my coming."
But we know now. We know more now.
We now know.
We now know that Jewish prophecies are all wrong, and Talmudic prophecies are wrong, except for when we can take them out of context and apply them to Joseph Smith, who happens to have the same name as Messiah ben Yosef, the Jewish altar Messiah from the Talmud. Look at the mind pretzels of this idiotic cult.
We need to come up with another fallacy name that, well, it's right when it supports my position and wrong when it doesn't.
Well, that's just a double standard.
Yeah, the double standard fallacy.
Yeah. So yeah, when the Jews mentioned, by the way, did you notice he did word concept fallacy several times? The Trinity is wrong because the word homoousios was used once by a Gnostic and an anti-Trinitarian. Yeah, well, guess what? The word logos was used by Marcus Aurelius. So what? Does that mean that every usage of the word logos necessarily is the Stoic philosophy? But this is how, like, religions, like cults like this thrive on the fraudulent deception of terms like Joseph. Well, that's got to be talking about Joseph Smith, because even though the Jews don't believe that it's a Gentile man or the Mormon.
As I always said in the chat, I thought it was a prophecy about Trader Joe's.
Yeah, why could we not start bringing in other Josephs here? Who's some other Josephs that we know?
Stalin, Joseph Stalin.
Messiah ben Joseph Stalin. And look, how can you say that it's wrong because the Jews got other things wrong? So I can take that to be Stalin. Like his logic was that because the Jews don't accept Messiah ben David as a son of David or Jesus.
And when you get in trouble, to use the words, well, it's consistent. You see, it's a consistent circle. Huh?
Well, we have a historical witness to it. Like what? Well, I'm of the tribes of Ephraim. How are you the tribe of Ephraim? This is like Black Hebrew Israelite level stuff.